welcome to Reddit Aliens. Current or ex-theme park employees, what are some dirty secrets that most people don't know about? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The park I worked at, the games were easier to win earlier in the day, so the people would carry around the giant prizes and entice other people to play. Don't ever go in the ball pits. Little kids track all sorts of food and grime into the pit and regularly pee in there since they confuse it for a pool. The balls are only cleaned once a week, and even then they are just put in a net bag and hosed off. You just keep spraying until the water stops coming off brown. They are there air dried and not sanitized in any way. Former Six Flags employee. My park is the safest in the country because we call the rides down for rain, for vomit, for lost items. They could be obstructing the track. So if a ride is down, it's probably not for a mechanical reason. We even pulled an emergency stop while I was being trained on one roller coaster because a military official lost his military ID and was threatening my boss if we didn't go get it for him. If people knew how small that issue was, they'd be furious that we stopped the ride. My friend in high school used to work at Hershey Park, and one day we went together. When we ordered lunch, I was just planning on asking for a cup of water with my meal so I didn't have to pay an extra $5. My friend told me to ask the cashier for a cup of magic water instead of just a cup of water. I trusted the friend, so I did what she said. When I received my cup of magic water, I took a sip, and to my surprise it was Sprite. So I got a free cup of Sprite with my meal that day. About 8 years ago, I managed a whitewater rafting ride, the big donut tubes that can sit 6 people, as a side job while in college. One day, the water filter broke down. The managers kept the ride running for over 2 weeks anyway. The water smelled so bad and turned dark green or brown. The inside of the rafts smelled like a month-old porta potty. We were instructed to tell guests the water filter was broken, but the water was clean, which I'm pretty sure was a lie. Thankfully, being a shift leader, I didn't need to go anywhere near the water, but I felt bad for my employees and the guests who rode despite looking obviously disgusted by the smell. Vomit with no visible blood is either cleaned up with a sawdust-like material to soak up the liquid and then swept into a dustbin or hosed off with a garden hose. The coaster seat or table is usually not sanitized or anything, so you are sitting in dried vomit particles. My place used to say that any change or cash lost in a ride was donated to charity. If they meant the charity of their employees' pockets, then they weren't lying. Quarters were the good ones to find, since it was rarely bills. We used to crank up the amount of salt in the fries and then build a soda stall next to it. Next, we'd remove some of the paths to trap guests in the salty fries expensive soda area. We made a killing. Most theme parks avoid paying overtime because they are considered seasonal. Therefore, they understaff and get employees to work 60+ hours, usually at less than stellar pay rates. That's completely legal though. As far as shady shit, the instances are few and far between because park's a cash cow and no one wants to F that up. At the water park I worked at, the pools had their pH levels checked constantly. 2 people's jobs was to walk around all day and continuously check the levels. The food is shit at these places, but that is not a dirty little secret. Worked at Cedar Point for a summer on disaster transport. May she rest in peace. Despite being an indoor ride, it would have to go down any time there was any significant amount of rain because the roof leaked, supposedly because the fireworks they set off from the beach would burn holes in it, but I don't know how true that actually is. This is especially significant for DT because it didn't run on a track like most coasters. It ran freely in a bobsled-like trough. So, the ride itself would actually be affected by the weight distribution in a given train. It would also fishtail around corners really badly if the trough was wet. So every time it rained, we'd send one of us to ride every couple cycles to feel whether or not it was fishtailing yet, because there was no other way to know without shutting the whole ride down to walk the trough. If we could tell that it was fishtailing, the ride would go down for mechanical reasons. We'd wait until the rain let up, then start running empty trains through to assist with drying everything up, with one of us going through occasionally until we could tell that the fishtailing had stopped. The real secret is that the ride was 100 times more fun when it was fishtailing because it was less predictable. Another case of the ride being a little bit unsafe, making it more fun there, was a brief period of time where if someone with an employee badge asked for an air hawk from the ride operators on the Skyhawk, they would intentionally not push the harness all the way down. Definitely not enough that you're going to fall out, but enough to get some absolutely sick airtime while riding the ride down. To this day, I still try to position myself in the seat in a way that the harness will be a couple clicks short of where it's supposed to be because it's so effing fun.
I can already feel the comments because I constantly mispronounced trough and said tro, so I'm sorry. Lesson learned, I've done it before, I may do it again, but I love you guys. Thank you.
I used to be in management for a small family-owned park in Utah. They hire lots of 14 and 15-year-old kids because they own a few cattle. Not exactly sure how this works, but I think technically they're considered farmhands, which allows them to work at a younger age than the usual 16. Since this place is one of the only employers in Utah to do this, they hire tons of the youngins. Former ride-op who worked multiple major-level parks. How often the ride crew members are hungover, possibly still drunk? You work with the same people day in and day out. You become family, especially at the age when you don't have much responsibility. Other than gas in the car, all you're doing is partying. Park closes at 10. By 11 p.m., you're shotgunning beers in your manager's backyard while the new kid is doing backflips off the roof of the house into the pool. That goes to like 4 to 5 a.m., and you all have to be at work at 9:30. Good times. Also, the inter-park relationships. MTV should do a reality show on working at an amusement park. The amounts of drama. Mid-30s now, but back in my late teens, I worked at a pretty famous theme park in Ontario, Canada. One guess at which one. I was a games op. The guys yelling at you to come and shoot the BB guns, play skee ball, try to get a basketball into a hoop, etc. Everything is tracked, literally, everything. My ID badge is swiped to start the game. If it was a race-type game like water squirt gun to fill a balloon, it tracked which side I started the game on. It tracked how many people were playing and where they were sitting. It tracked how many prizes were won, which seats were lucky, which weren't, and adjusted things accordingly. For gun-type games, like where you had to shoot the star out of the paper, I had Canadian Armed Forces JTF-2, our SEAL Team 6 type guys, fail at it because the barrels are too large for the projectile. The sights are misaligned, and air pressure is not regulated. Some shots are less, some are more, never over or under safety limits. You could bolt the gun down, load it with BBs, and fire it at a giant canvas of paper, and it'll look like a shotgun blast went off and not a rifle with a close clustering of hits. For anything that is skill-based like ring toss, those rings are millimeters difference in sizes for the thing you're throwing them on. You have to be literally perfect with it. We had larger rings we'd hold on to that made the skill much easier, so we could show you how easy it was, and they're usually kept on us and never given away. Prizes won with them were invalid, so even employees sneaking the rings to friends who showed up was a big no-no. Also, cameras everywhere. Big prizes are tracked, and in many situations you could only win one big prize per day or visit. TL, DR, ride the rides, bring your own food or drink, and use the lockers to keep your phone and crap in. You'll survive without it for a day. Stay away from the food or vendors, anything games, and get extra strawberry sauce on your funnel cake because they're awesome. Been a while since I worked at Disney. Here's what I can remember. Code words: 101 ride down, 102 ride back up, official. Code words unofficial: 105 attractive guest, 737 fat guest, 747 fat guest on an ECV. We spread Vobin on vomit. As others have described, it's a sawdust-like material with an incredibly distinctive smell. We do indeed hate you. That one clever thing you do to try to get a rise out of us, yeah, we've seen it a million times before. Being nice is a great way to get us to treat you well. Nice people get to ride again, and if I'm feeling generous, people who try to insist to ride again stop the ride for everyone else. We have had a little book which had the ability to rectify situations. You drop your soda, we can get you another. Weren't supposed to, but we did give them out for magical moments. Could give you a fast pass for any ride in the park, free food, etc. At the end of the night, we walk the track and locate items lost. Some of the unsavory employees, cast members, would find items and take them. One dude I know sold shit on eBay all the time. Yes, we can get you into the park for free. No, we're not going to. Some people sell their passes, can be termed for it. Didn't stop them. Working hotels, we give back ridiculous amounts of money for stupid inconveniences. In addition, if someone is really nice or celebrating something, we can deliver free stuff to the room. Once spent $300 on someone cause they were incredibly kind and celebrating a milestone anniversary. If you complain enough, Disney will cater to you. My ex's mom never made reservations for anything. She'd just go and insist she had a reservation, argue shamelessly for 15 to 20 minutes, and eventually we'd be seated. It was always awkward. I didn't work at Disney during that time, did it for Cinderella's Royal Table, the steakhouse in Canada, Epcot, Crystal Palace, literally any restaurant. We know when you're full of shit. We've heard everything. At the end of the day, it's a job, and most, aside from college program kids who actually think the experience is going to mean something in their lives, of us don't give a crap about you, how much you've saved for years, etc. It's a minimum wage job, and we don't get paid enough to deal with your BS.
So complain a lot and get what you want. Indeed, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we wonder why there's behavior problems in our country.
How gross the food is. Overpriced and frozen, dropped on the floor and picked up with unwashed hands. I worked in the park subway, and my manager made me wash off moldy tomatoes to serve to customers because she forgot to order fresh food. Ugh. Not lurid, but just some behind the scenes from a different angle. I worked as an acrobat in a show at park one summer. It was amazing. I got paid $125 a day. So as a 19-year-old like a decade ago, who'd been waiting tables for like 12 to 13-hour shifts the summer before, it felt like I was an actual rock star or something. I had money for my monthly rent in less than a week each month, and money to spare that I could blow on clubbing and stuff. Should have saved it. I had 3 half-hour shows a day, with 2 3-hour breaks between shows. During the breaks, I could go ride rides because as a contracted employee through the production company, I wasn't technically a direct employee of the park. It was a medium-sized park that I'd thought large as like a high schooler, but I got tired of the rides in like 3 to 4 days. Then I wandered to the water park and found the lazy river and realized I could just ride the lazy river all day and tan and get paid for it. Later, even that got boring to do all day, so I would spend my time between shows getting better at my acro that I was performing in the show. But I didn't want to get hurt pushing too hard on the job since there was no workers' comp. So I ended up learning to play guitar and sing at the top of the scaffolding on the set, like 25 feet up, with a cool breeze and audio privacy just from the amount of park noise around me. I'd do it again if I had the chance, but I'm not good enough anymore and have to be a grown-up. It was probably the best 4 months of my life in some ways. I guess the only behind-the-scenes thing that I think everyone would be interested in, just like I was allowed to walk everywhere in the park. I had an ID badge that someone could theoretically check, but my costume for the show was streetwear anyway, and no one ever really checked who I was or asked why I was there at any point in the summer. All summer I just walked around exploring the minutiae of the park with impunity, and 80% of the time I could have been a random park goer and no one would have checked. It's really amazing how deep into places you can just walk acting confidently without anyone asking if you should be there. Former park ops at a Florida theme park here. My job was to do custodial work in the bathroom and pathways, sweep, take out trash, hose, etc. of my designated section while occasionally getting assigned theater duty. That $15 meal that you just paid for in the restaurant? Yeah, the employees could get all of that for $2 or $3, just depends on the items. Theme park food is definitely way overpriced for guests. If you complain enough, you will get what you want. When the theater hits capacity, I can't let anyone in. You can give me a sob story about how you traveled all the way from Antarctica for all I care. The second that you mention wanting to talk to a supervisor, I have to get them. 9 out of 10 times, my supervisor will let you through the show no problem, just to keep you happy. I, on the other hand, will be slightly annoyed, but that's how things work in theme parks. There's a plainclothes security officer walking around the whole entire park. You probably don't even notice. Please think twice before doing anything stupid, like having sex on the Sky Ride.
I'm not sure what the Sky Ride is, but based on your specificity, I'm assuming someone did try to have sex on that? Be an interesting post too.
I was a lifeguard at a seasonal water park many years ago, and it was my first job, and one of the most amazing ones I've ever had to this day. First, the good. Most large water parks have extremely well-trained lifeguards. Even if they are all teenagers, they're usually working between 20 to 60 hours a week, and some of those hours are additional first aid and skills training. We had drop tests done on us randomly throughout the season too. A baby doll was dropped in the water. We called him Timmy, if I remember right, and we had 20 seconds to spot him, blow the whistle, and begin performing rescue techniques, just to prove we were always actively watching for anything unusual or people who may need help. Now, the weird. If a water attraction is randomly closed down and the guards are blocking it for a short time, it's probably because someone pooped in the pool, and the head guards are making sure it got it all cleaned out. Very stupid and frustrating, but no one wants to swim with a poop. Oh, and those big funnel slides? Yes, some of us have fallen down them. It turns out it's really easy to lose your balance when you are a 120-pound teenage girl trying to manage a raft full of 4 fully grown adults. I would not recommend going down without the tube. It's terrifying. Not that I know, from experience, of course. And finally, the bad. While the guards are on-site first aid are very well trained, we aren't a replacement for a doctor. Many amusement parks are in more rural areas since they need so much space to build and expand. If you are seriously injured and it's life-threatening, in that case can take a long time before you are transported to a proper ER or hospital. I say that because we were trained to get someone who is drowning safely out of the water and treat minor injuries, but we can't put you back together if you, say, fall 40 feet off the slides. We had something like this happen the first summer I worked. Someone was messing around on the speed slide platform, slipped past the guardrail, and fell. I'm not sure they could have been helped even if they had immediate medical care, but I know it was already too late when the ambulance got there. The staff that responded to this was forced to take a few days off, and someone didn't return to first aid afterwards. Like I said, in the beginning, we were well trained and dedicated, but we were still kids. Actually, having to deal with an emergency like that is too much to ask at that age. So please, even if a rule seems stupid, follow what the guards say. Take breaks when you have to, and don't push yourself when you're playing in a water park. It really is for your safety. Guy at a chicken tendies restaurant in the theme park was a farmer hick. Liked to do stupid pranks. Turnover was high, so a manager was 16 years old. Basically, kids run theme parks. Anyway, wanted to fry his boot in a deep fryer to see what would happen. Boot was caked in cow shit. He dropped it in. At this time, a customer was bitching about not getting his french fries. Said, "I didn't pay $47 to come in this park and stand in line all day." This was about 17 years ago now. Anyway, Hick Farmer was getting annoyed with trying to tong his boot out of the fryer, gets annoyed at the customer, and throws the fries down. Fry basket right over the shit-caked boot. Cooked until golden brown and served up to the customer. That was my first day working at the park and my last day in food services, forever. To this day, if I'm ever dragged to the park for whatever reason, I always avoid that chicken restaurant.